I want to go across to Tatiana Kukhareva. She's a well-known journalist joining us live from Moscow. Tatiana, welcome. Thanks for being with us here on India Today's coverage. You know, the crossfire, diplomatic crossfire, also escalating now after the United Kingdom banned Aeroflot. Now Russia has taken similar action against the United Kingdom.
Indeed, and that has been the position from the very beginning. You know, Russia took response actions back in 2014, and it was to be expected that those similar mirror actions would have been taken this time around. Look, the Great Britain has actually behaved, you know, quite aggressively in this whole situation. Prime Minister Johnson was the first one to call for Ukraine to retaliate against Russia, whereas, you know, Moscow has maintained this whole time that this is a special operation that is only targeting military sites. They're not targeting civilians. This is not a war. This is an operation to demilitarize Ukraine in order to keep peace in the region, to stop the shelling of Donetsk and Lugansk republics, and in order to then proceed to diplomacy. And so these messages of, you know, warmongering towards Ukraine from the United Kingdom were worrisome to begin with. Now the mirror action against Britain, in this instance with the airlines and the ban of British flights to Moscow, that's something to have been expected.
Tatiana, you know, what we're also picking up here in India are some images that are coming in of protests that are broken out in Moscow as well. Are these, you know, sporadic in nature? Are these massive protests? Because the information we're picking up is of thousands of people being taken in, protesting against the decision of Russian President Putin.
Well, it's not 1,000 people. The official numbers were 600 people yesterday, and you can imagine that for a city like Moscow with almost 20 million people, 600 is not a massive protest. We can't call this massive protests. They were sporadic. They were called in the same day. They were also not permitted because they were not coordinated with the government. However, I could not, in all honesty, say that there is a massive expression against this decision. We haven't seen any mass protest against whatsoever. And why should it be? We have been watching this war unfold for 8 years.
Tatiana, you know, the Russian claim that no civilian areas have been targeted. There are a series of videos coming in from the Ukraine. Some of those, you know, are not authenticated. Some reporters on the ground have been reporting from civilian areas, you know, where damage appears to have been done. You know, is this a case of collateral damage? How is Russia looking at this?
Well, so far, the Ministry of Defense has reiterated that the only areas that are being targeted are military areas, but you have to look at, you know, margin of error. For instance, if and only if, and we're talking a completely theoretical situation, you know, if a Ukrainian air defense system shoots down a missile and it falls onto civilian area, you know, you couldn't really call it an effect of said, you know, Russian actions, could you? In the meantime, we're getting pictures out of Kyiv, out of Kharkov, the city of Kharkov, you know, that's the border, also a border region with Russia, also in eastern Ukraine, where Ukrainian forces are setting Grad missile systems in civilian areas. We have pictures. The pictures have been authenticated already by Russian media, and that those pictures, if you ask me, are much more worrying than the videos. And so far, we've also seen a couple of those videos actually proven to be fake as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, certainly, that's flying thick and fast between both sides. A couple more questions, Tatiana. One, between yesterday and today, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has released pictures of at least 4, Russian military personnel who've apparently been taken captive. Yesterday, there were 2 soldiers. Today, there were 2 paratroopers. We've got those pictures that we're going to put up on our screens as well. Has the Russian confirmed that some of these military personnel from the Russian side have been taken captive? Their pictures and videos have been released by the Ukrainian side.
Unfortunately, I can't confirm you something that the Ministry of Defense has not confirmed. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, if we know anything about the Ukrainian side, is that they're prone to misinformation. And we've seen this time and time again from them.
The situation in Kyiv, the situation in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, it suggests, from the ground, from civilians and, the president of Ukraine, the government. Let's leave the government aside, but civilians suggest that Russian forces have surrounded Kyiv. The city is under siege right now. Special operators have entered, looking to take over certain key sites. Is that what's happening? Because at one point, there was a suggestion that this is not an invasion, but this appears to be a takeover of the capital city. There's also a claim that a Russian aircraft was shot down. Can you confirm or deny that based on what you're hearing from your government?
Well, look, I do believe that whenever the Ministry of Defense announces, any sort of additional information, you'll hear it as soon as I will. Mm-hmm. But again, we're not talking about a takeover. We're talking about a military operation. And until any further notice from the Ministry of Russian Defense or from the announcement from Russia's president, I think that, generally, even according to journalism standards, it should be regarded as such, as an operation. I've seen those reports from Kyiv that the city is surrounded. However, again, unfortunately, there is no confirmation of that information. So as soon as we can confirm anything, and the Ministry of Defense is very vocal in this situation. They're briefing daily, and they're briefing several times a day. They're briefing us on what they've taken control of. For instance, today they've confirmed that they've taken control of the Chernobyl area in order to prevent any sort of nuclear provocation by the nationalist formations in Ukraine. It's still a danger zone that could potentially wreak havoc for many nations, basically. So they've taken control, and they're actually cooperating with the Ukrainian battalion that is guarding the what used to be the atomic station. The nuclear power plant.
Tatiana, I was just going to ask you exactly about that, about the communication that's come in from the Russian government about the takeover of Chernobyl and exactly what the Russian government's intention was by doing that. I'm glad you cleared the air for us on that. Another final question I want to ask you is about what Russia's response is going to be with regards to all the economic sanctions that are coming its way from countries around the world. This is not just the West, not just the United States that we're talking about, but many European countries, the UK, Australia, they've all announced sanctions that will, one way or another, hit Russia economically.
They will hit both ways. If there's something that we've learned about sanctions in these years, first of all, there are always more sanctions to be imposed as a mirror response, as we just discussed, just a couple of minutes earlier. And they will hit both ways. That's one thing that our Western allies seem to be forgetting every time, because, whenever you cut a tie, you don't just cut it for the person on the other side of that tie. So that is a worrisome situation. However, we'll have to, again, wait and see how it unfolds economically, because, the global economy is... it's a structure. You can't just take one player, a big player, so to speak, out and not feel the consequences for all the other players.
Very true, very true. And we appreciate that perspective, Tatiana. Thank you for taking our questions. We'll keep coming back to you, to get a both sides perspective on a crisis. This is a story that's still playing out. There are developments every passing hour. There's a lot of misinformation, and I'm glad we're able to sift through some of that. So thank you. We value your perspective from Moscow. We'll keep coming back to you. Thank you for the moment, Tatiana.